In the grand epic of Indian history, names like Ashoka, Akbar, and Shivaji dominate textbooks and temple walls. Their tales echo in palaces and war cries. But there are others, names whispered in mountain passes, remembered not for thrones or empires, but for their final stand, a single moment of unimaginable courage that turned the tide of history. This is the story of Baji Prabhu Deshpande, a warrior who made death wait, a man who didn't survive the war because he was the war. And the day he chose to stand still, the world moved around him. The year was 1660. India, as always, was fractured and fighting. Mughals from the north, the Adil Shahi Sultanate from the south, and a rebel spark in the middle, Shivaji Maharaj, a young warrior king rising out of the Sahyadri hills, aiming to carve out a homeland free from foreign rule. The Marathas were not an empire yet. They were dreamers, rebels, mountain warriors climbing toward destiny. But dreams have enemies, and Shivaji's was surrounded, trapped inside the mighty Panhala fort, encircled by the armies of Sidi Jauhar, a brutal general of the Adil Shahi dynasty. Shivaji had nowhere to run. Supplies were dwindling, every escape route watched, every ally either too far or too afraid. Surrender meant chains, resistance meant death, but Shivaji did not surrender. He devised a plan, daring, desperate, and nearly impossible. One night, under the cover of a thunderstorm, Shivaji would escape the siege, disguised as a merchant, slipping through enemy lines with a handful of loyal men. The rest of the Maratha troops would remain behind as a distraction. But distractions only by moments. Shivaji needed hours, a full day's lead to reach Vishalgad, another distant fort through forest and enemy territory. And that's where Baji Prabhu stepped in. Baji Prabhu Deshpande wasn't born noble. He wasn't a prince or a minister or a man seeking fame. He was a warrior, loyal, fierce. And when his king asked for someone to hold a mountain pass against a pursuing army, Baji didn't hesitate. The mission was suicide, outnumbered 100 to 1. But Baji smiled, drew his blade, and said, "I will hold the pass until I hear the cannon fire from Vishalgad." That would be the signal. One blast of cannon fire from the fort would mean Shivaji had made it. Until then, no one passes. The pass was called Pavan Khind, a narrow stretch of rocky terrain in the western Ghats, winding, treacherous, a natural choke point, the perfect battlefield for the desperate and the brave. Baji took 300 of his best men, soldiers who knew they would never return, and marched into the pass like ghosts into legend. Then the enemy came, 10,000 troops, furious at the escape, armed with spears, muskets, in rage, stormed after Shivaji. But before them stood a wall made not of stone, but of flesh and blood, Baji's army. The Battle of Pavan Khind began in thunder and steel. The narrow cliffs echoed with screams and steel. The rain turned red, and Baji Prabhu fought like a god of war reborn. Wielding two swords, moving like wind and fire, he cut down waves of soldiers. He was everywhere, leading charges, patching wounded men, roaring commands. And every time the enemy surged forward, the Marathas pushed them back. But they were bleeding. They were dying by the hour, by the dozen. Still no cannon, still Baji stood. The Adil Shahi troops tried everything. They attacked in shifts, they fired from the cliffs, they sent archers, then musketeers, then elite guards, and still, Baji held them back. He had taken wounds, deep ones, a cut across his chest, a broken leg, an arrow through his shoulder, but his grip on the sword never faltered. One soldier later wrote that Baji looked less like a man and more like time itself, refusing to move forward. And then, as dawn broke over the drenched forest and Baji had almost no one left standing beside him, it happened. From the distant mountains behind them, boom, a single echoing cannon blast. Shivaji had made it. He was safe at Vishalgad. The mission was complete. And Baji? He smiled, collapsed, and died on the battlefield, where he had become more than mortal. His body was covered in wounds, some say over 40, but none on his back, because he never turned around. Baji Prabhu Deshpande gave his life to buy time, and with that time, a future was secured, because Shivaji would go on to do what no other leader of his age could, build a sovereign Maratha Empire, one that would resist the Mughals, the British, and every foreign power for over a century. But it started with one man, in one pass, refusing to let history pass him by. Pavan Khind would never be the same again. It was renamed Pavan Khind, the sacred pass, not because of religion, but because it had been baptized in the blood of warriors who fought like gods. Even today, locals whisper the name Baji Prabhu with reverence. Children are taught his story not as myth, but as an example, not of strength, not of tactics, but of devotion to his king, to his land, to the idea that sometimes one man's will can stand against an entire army. He wasn't a king, but he earned more honor than most who sat on thrones. He didn't build an empire, but he held the door open long enough for someone else to. He didn't ask to be remembered. But legends like his never truly die. Like this video, if you believe courage isn't measured by survival, but by sacrifice. Comment below. Should every Indian child grow up hearing the name Baji Prabhu? Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that a single act of bravery can rewrite the world. Subscribe for more true warrior stories, because the ones who gave everything deserve more than silence. And the next time someone tells you one person can't make a difference, tell them the story of Baji Prabhu Deshpande. One man, one mission, one final stand.